2x2 formation. Road change now, we go racing for the first time this season. 3 hours of GT action, it's go.
It's very tight as they come down. Group of cars coming in, this has all got trouble written all over it. This is G3 cars.
Drop downhill there, head towards the Aqua Minerale. Imola, of course. There's another one off through the gravel. As wide as possible as they drop downhill, putting that from the inside line. Yes, he did. Through he goes.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back then to another Apex Online Racing stream here for round 1 of Season 11, or Season XI, the more Roman numeral based amongst you. And whilst we have had some changes across the last couple of seasons to the game, we have seen BOP changes that may have quite a substantial effect on the car lineup that we see this evening at Spa. Some things don't change, and one of those constants is Tim Lunn joining me in the comms box once again. Tim, how are you doing, my good friend?
I am very good, glad to be back after a bit of a hiatus last season, so I missed most of Season X, and I know technically it should be Season XI, but I think it sounds way better if it's Season XL. It's bigger than last season, it's better than last season, it's an absolute onslaught of new racers and Tier 1 racers that have joined us now in Tier 2 after the massive influx of racers, so it's bigger than last season as far as I'm concerned. So it is now Season XL, because even bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, I mean, the driver lineup that we've got going into this season. Obviously, we saw the absolute quickest guys yesterday in Tier 1, but do not underestimate Tier 2. We've seen time and time again with these Tier 2 streams that these Tier 2 guys can sometimes even show the Tier 1 guys how it should be done. Maybe have that cleaner racing and avoid certain incidents. And we have got a fantastic grid of talent this evening, and some names exactly as you mentioned, where we've got some guys that have moved from Tier 1 down in towards Tier 2. They'll be looking to try to prove why they should be remaining in Tier 1 for maybe going into next season, and trying to see how these guys will get on. And we've got some interesting newcomers as well, and it's fantastic to see all of these new drivers joining AOR kind of and mixing up with those. We've got some regulars as well. If you see the likes of Makovsky, Lipka, we've got Yogurk, Christus Podens in this grid, Struch, a lot of returning names, but also on lots of fresh faces. And another aspect that's kind of fresh to this is look at the cars that we've got mixing up at the kind of grid for the time being. We've got Hondas, we've got Mercedes at the pointy end in the practice session. It's all shaken up a bit over the last few weeks, hasn't it, Tim?
Yeah, the most recent change has really put some of the more popular cars on the back foot. Obviously, there was things like the BMW M4. People really got into that very popular car. It was a very dominant car, but it's been hit really hard by the most recent BOP change. So actually, I think the M6, if you can hold on to it, supposedly is a faster car now, which I think we did see one M6 in the... Was it Tier 1 yesterday? I believe it was BMW Nils?
It was, yeah. Nils Narks for
the...
BS Plus Competition was rocking the M6. I think his teammate Arthur Camera was using the M4, obviously remaining more comfortable with more modern BMW. But yeah, very big shake-ups in the BOP.
Really good to see the Honda out and about. Obviously, we saw it did actually have a bit of a resurgence when they did the unofficial Evo 2. That came out during the, or is it just the beginning of the endurance season, which has just finished, to be fair. Another one's about to begin on the weekend, I think. So yeah, the endurance season was quite good and gave people a bit of a chance to try some cars in a race environment for long periods of time. Obviously, every sprint race is only an hour long, but you know, 9 hours on one circuit is invaluable training time. So these guys have had a little bit, some of them a little bit more time than others in the driver's seat on one circuit in one car. Should probably let you know qualifying is beginning. I think it was Nuttall who put in the fastest time during free practice.
Yeah, so he was looking very, very quick, actually, or even before this practice session. I had a little bit of a sneaky peek on the server times, and in the Honda he was really mixing up with some of the Tier 1 guys, so keep an eye on that 114 Honda. He's currently leading the way for drivers trying to make their first efforts around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, and may very well look to be trying to head to pole position as well, because he has been looking extremely fast, as have the Hondas all over these last couple of days. They've been looking astonishingly quick.
Yeah, it's definitely become sort of a car to choose, and it's really good to see it back, because it did just completely disappear from competitive racing for quite a long time. But to see it back up and racing is really nice. I think I did see somewhere in one of the tiers, I'm not sure which tier it is, I think it's slightly lower down, someone is racing in the old V12 Aston, which is commendable. I will say, someone's in one of those when we were going through the liveries and loading them up. And speaking of liveries, I don't think we had, I think it was Carnival 101 yesterday on the Tier 1 stream, definitely won my livery of the day. It was a little bit risque, but if anyone wants to sort of put forward a request as to which livery they want to see the most or what their favourite livery of the day on the stream is, do let us know in the YouTube chat and we'll let you know. We'll try and get it on the screen for you. As I think there's some returning favourites like the SpongeBob cars. I'm sure the SpongeBob cars are here.
Yeah, Yogurt, I think,
amazing.
is,
yeah.
I think, yeah, Christopher Podens, if I can find him on the leaderboard, as everything is moving around a little bit for me. There we go. Yep, in the Honda this time, he was driving the Audi, of course, which last season it was a bit of a duel between himself and Daniel Pashka in the Lost in Pace Audi, and you know, that car was extremely strong last season, but amongst all the BOP changes was one of the cars that did start to lose a bit of performance. It's still got some good tracks, but it does look like it's not quite the powerhouse that it once was previously. So it'd be interesting to see where they filter out. But yes, absolutely, we've got another SpongeBob livery featured on here. I don't think he's got his compatriot. I know there was a bit of a duo setup of liveries last time. I think between himself and Remy Papin with a Patrick Star livery to go with it. But I think it's just the SpongeBob one for Christers today. But just looking,
his livery showing? It's not on mine. That's quite possibly just my fault. But it was all working yesterday when I went through and installed them all. I'm seeing the yellow and blue, but I'm not seeing any actual.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same for me. I'm because I have all of this compressed on a single monitor. It's a little bit trickier sometimes to see the detail. Yeah, we've got the main color scheme, but we don't seem to have the key detail of that livery, so I'm not quite sure why that has happened. I think some of the other liveries do seem to be working, so it's possible that Christers may have loaded up a slightly different variation to the main one on the server, so that could be causing that conflict there. But just checking in on our first sets of times, we were wondering if he might be looking to be pretty quick, and Jamie Nuttall putting himself on provisional pole for the time being. Still 10 minutes of this session left to go, clearly, so a lot of time for movement, but a 2:16.4 with Justin Stubenrauch in another Honda, the 445 car in the Remwelton Esports car, keeping him honest as that rather unfortunately not quite as SpongeBob themed car as we would like of Christers goes into provisional P2, only 0.02 of a second ahead of Stubenrauch, so immediately seeing a little bit of Honda domination at the pointy end of the field.
Yeah, I would say also that 2:16.4 that Nuttall has done, that is a match of his free practice time. So that was the fastest time we saw in free practice. Obviously, these guys are probably running less fuel than they were in free practice, but that's impressive. Straight out the gate, putting in a 16.4. That is some seriously quick times. And obviously, for anyone unaware, Nuttall, he's pretty new to us. Actually, the only experience he has with Apex Online Racing is when we did the 12 hours of COTA Freedom Race, which was utter torture for those guys. So for him to do that race and then want to come back is commendable, because COTA's a very challenging circuit. We'll say that. It certainly stresses the mind slightly, I would say.
There's a huge amount of concentration required around that circuit, even on the shorter durations. But for an endurance race, yeah, you're absolutely right. It is exhausting to try to clip those apexes in exactly the right way without getting a penalty. So yeah, Jamie Nuttall will probably be hoping to have a more enjoyable experience, and certainly seems to be lining up something, because he seems to be on 0.2 of an improvement up on his previous best, which could be a huge time around here. And as he hits the line, does improve by about 1/10.5 and does a 2:16.3, so I'm sure he'll be happy with that one, but does look to be continuing on another lap and immediately finding some time in the first corner as he's actually backed out that one, so that'll be last of his efforts for the time being, but certainly laying down the gauntlet, as meanwhile Christers and Stubenrauch weren't able to improve on their second lap. So Jamie Nuttall then in the 1:14 is looking very, very quick and in prime position to take the opening pole position of the season. And another Honda has joined the party in that top group. We've now got Andras Kuderman in the number 16 car, about half a second adrift, and the last of that Hondas. Whether we'll see 5 Hondas grouped up together, not entirely sure, but does definitely seem to be Honda territory around here at Spa Stay.
Definitely does. Quick one in the chat, seeing lots of peanuts. So that's obviously one of our races. Presumably one of the teams is something to do with peanuts, I presume, or they're using the nut emoji to say something else. But
the only thing I can think of is for Jamie Nuttall. Is potentially
probably really obvious and probably correct. Nut for nut. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And there's also people cheering on car number 114, which
is also Jamie Nuttall.
Yeah, that'll be why I'm looking down the rest of the list trying to see it, and he's there. So there we go. It would appear lots of Nuttall fans here. So it could be that Nuttall could be the fan favourite this year, dethroning Mirveld, who was always the original fan favourite. So Mirveld fans, come on, come out the woodwork, fight against the Nuttals, because at the moment there's tons of them. As we said, Nuttall being someone that has never raced with us before apart from on one of the endurance races. We were talking about Kuderman, who is currently running in 4th place. He actually, this is his first series with us on the PC. Previously, he has been a PlayStation 5 racer, and he came came 10th in Tier 1 last time round. So making the move across to PC, so he's going to be someone to be reckoned with. He obviously knows his way around a circuit. He knows how to race. He's got plenty of experience. He knows AOR, just not in the PC format. So going to be interested to see how he gets on with the changeover. I mean, technically it should pretty much be the same game, but they can sometimes be an update or two behind. PC does tend to get a little bit of a preferential treatment compared to the more conventional consoles. So it'd be interesting to see how he gets on.
Yeah, without a doubt. And also just thinking in terms of some of our kind of repeating faces from Tier 2, and a name that I do recognise. We've got Jordan Watson on screen at the moment in the Ferrari once more, the 147 car. Currently up on quite a substantial improvement. He's found 0.6 of a second. He's only just under a second away from pole position. So this is a big lap coming from the 147 car, and looking, only needs a handful of attempts to really firmly make his way up into the top 10 in this grid order. So this could be a pretty big time from the 147 car. If you can see it to the line, he's continuing to find time all the way down to the bus stop chicane. Trying to spot your braking point can be so tricky. And a little bit off camber on that entry, swing it into the final one. Get a tiniest bit of slipstream off the Audi just in front of Jordan Watson in the 147 car. It's a pretty big time. It's good enough for the front row for the time being. Still about 0.2 of a second adrift of Jamie Nuttall, who is almost matching his current time, but does seem to be finding a bit of extra performance in that 114 car. But Jordan Watson then spoiling that Honda party at the front end of the field.
Absolutely fantastic to see a Ferrari up there at the sharp end of the field as well. Really good. Just having a little look, and just outstanding effort by him, to be fair. And let's have a quick look. Actually, he was 13th in Tier 2 last season, so a very accomplished driver. He is more than able to get himself up at the point end of the field. So 13th is nothing to scoff at.
And he was plagued with quite a bit of bad luck as well, from what I remember. I seem to remember Watson being in contention for a couple of podiums at times, and then just things seemed to go horribly wrong in the latter stage of the races. So I think he definitely will have a bit of a point to prove in this season of Tier 2.
Well, I mean, we've seen it before where guys have had a season and they've had lots and lots of bad luck. Caracas, who over in Tier 2, and now he's up in Tier 1. So it is really possible that if you have a bad season, come back, stick it out, and you can prove yourself. I mean, you've only got to look at something like in F1, Ferrari, had really bad luck, or some people might just say bad planning. But the drivers are there, they've got the skills. Just sometimes your season just doesn't work out and it isn't your season. So really good to see people coming back and going for it again. And as I said, 13th is really nothing to, do not cough at that. That is a really good effort.
Yeah, without a doubt. And just having a look at some of our other drivers. Jamie Nuttall did manage to improve ever so slightly on his time. It was only a small amount, but he is going absolutely ballistic on this current lap. He's 0.3 of a second up on his delta, which could see him drop into the 15s if he manages to bring that one home. We're just keeping an eye on Lipka for the moment, who's finishing off a pretty good lap. He's found 0.3 of a second so far. He's currently sitting in P10. It might be good enough to get him into a top 5, and he hits the timing beam. It is to get himself as the one and only Audi in that top 5. But I'm going to have to jump back towards our man that's on provisional pole and continuing to try to show exactly what pace he has got in that 114 car, because he has maintained that delta in these opening couple of sectors.
Yeah, he's
and
still
Jamie Nuttall's still
up.
This could be a huge time from Jamie Nuttall.
I think he's lost a fair bit of time now at the bottom of the hill, though. It's currently on my timing screen showing at only 0.2. He's back. It's back and forth, isn't it? It's really close. This could get him into the 215s, which he'll be the only driver in the 215s, and that is Tier 1 pace. That is the fastest of the fastest, boys. I say, and although you may think Tier 2 isn't going to be as good, these guys' actual lap times can be just as quick. They're not just done on who does the fastest lap. AOR look at different things. They look at your racecraft, they look at your previous experience, how you get on in an actual race, not just hot lapping. So some of these guys, outright pace, are the same, and he's still 0.3 up.
Went a little bit deep in the bus stop, though. I think he's lost a bit of time, but it still will be an improvement. Not quite good enough for the 15s, but a 2:16.0, half a second clear of the rest of the field, and that is a big time. He will maybe have one more attempt if he's got enough fuel left in the car, and there's clearly time still left in that lap, so we may still have a 15 yet.
Just unbelievable. Yeah, with just under a minute to go, this will be his last flying lap. I don't know how many laps he's done previous to this, so the tyres may be starting to move away slightly, but I mean, he's half a second in front of Watson, so that's some big efforts. It really is going to be a case of if he can get out in front and stay out in front, he could realistically run away with this, without any too many incidents. I don't think I've seen him go off. I did see Podens go off in qualifying when he was chasing after a good time. So, yeah, the possibilities. Someone who's on a bit of a flyer is, I believe it's Tim Peichman.
Yeah, we've got him on screen actually at the moment. Obviously, great minds think alike on looking at these cars. Yeah, he's found 2/10 in that opening sector. He's just on this sort of tail end of the top 10 for the time being, so that could see him move up. Steuben Rauch also at the pointy end of the grid has just gone in front of Watson by 0.003 of a second in the dying moments of qualifying, and I think that may be his last effort. So Watson, I think, won't be starting on the front row. I don't believe he is on a lap, but yeah, Tim Peichman does seem to have maintained his delta. I think that's Nuttall's backed out of his lap, so we won't be seeing a 15 by the looks of it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Tim Peichman getting a nice tow off the McLaren just in front. That's going to really help him shuffle up the order.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it moved out the way as well. It was on an out lap, so it didn't need to get in his way at all. It's cleared the route for him. Just that last
this
drag
could
to the
be
line.
huge. P4 in the McLaren for Tim Peichman. Fantastic.
This gentleman has no previous AOR experience. He put in his, he did all the things necessary to get into the season, but this is this person's first competitive race with Apex Online Racing, and he's got himself in 4th position, Tier 2. That is just ridiculous.
Yeah, that is a brilliant effort. And in the McLaren as well, but is maybe not in quite as much fine form as it has been around here previously. McCoskey is the first of our BMWs. Only manages to make his way up to P12. And I think our last car on circuit, Thomas Jack, goes up to 18th. And we do have a couple more. We've got Neuwirth in the Aston Martin. He's found a couple of 10s. Might squeeze into the 16s as he hits the time being good enough for 21st. And then Ola Pitchik in the number 141 car, I think will be your last one. Really nice livery on that Aston Martin. Team Ballas Esport car's always looking very, very nice. And he jumps up the order. And in actual fact, now our last Aston Martin, Jay Fang, change of cars for him. Usually a Mercedes runner, now in the Aston, stays P27. And I think that is all she wrote.
And 48 just coming across the line.
Yep, and there we go. I think there was a little bit of a weird delta for me on the on Stubenrauch's car for the 445. I think he was still on a lap, but it was pretty touch and go for that. But what a fantastic opening session. But Jamie Nuttall, what a huge statement to make in the opening round of Season 11. We know, in fairness, that the Honda is pretty pacey, but he is half a second clear, not just of anyone else, but of the next Honda. So, really looking in fine form this evening is that man in the 114 car.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really dominant time to be putting in. I say, just looking at his Delta times, he's got Delta 1 and 3, the overall fastest. Actually, amazingly, hang on, am I looking at free practice or qualifying? I'm looking at qualifying. Down in 11th place, our leading AMG Mercedes actually holds the fastest Delta time for Sector 2 with a 59.442. So that's 0.2 of a second quicker through Sector 2. So really showing that the Mercedes is pretty strong in that middle sector. But, I mean, it's just great time. Nearly half a second in front of Stubenrauch. That's a massive advantage to be able to put in a time that much quicker. It's just going to see if he can do it in a race pace. You know,
exactly.
Is this possibly the thing of maybe this is why Nuttall is in tier 2, where he's got the speed, you know, he's got the laps, but in a race, is he as quick? Is he as competitive? Obviously, we have to do a mandatory pit stop here. He is going to possibly come out in traffic. You know, it all comes down to things like that. What is your racecraft like, as well as just what your overall pace is? And we've seen people fall apart before. Hopefully not. I'm judging by the way of the amount of Nuttall fans in the chat. I really hope it goes all right for him. Otherwise, I'm slightly worried for my life. There's a lot of them in there. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good race. I just want to quickly... I've put together a bit of a fact sheet for everyone because, you know, I'm that kind of guy. I like to put together a little fact sheet. So, and apologise in advance if I make any mistakes on names. Feel free to tell me off and say, Tim, you butchered that name. Say it correctly next time. So we've got Christian Depluy, who has no previous experience with AOR. Jonas Fawkes, no previous experience. Koketso Lelaine, with no previous AOR experience. Karoten, no previous experience. Gimaselli, no previous experience. I mean, there's just tons of them. Giblanc, no previous experience. Again, Stubenrauch, as we said before, no previous experience. Kieran Patterson, no previous experience. There's just tons of these guys here this season that have come into Apex Online Racing pretty much at the tippy top. And that's just bonkers. Tim Peachman, again, no previous experience. And there's lots of guys here that... Hagley, I do apologise. I'm struggling to pronounce that one. How would you pronounce that one, John? Hladky.
Trying to find him on the leaderboard.
Sorry, I haven't. He is... is he actually in the race today? Let's double check. Apologies.
I'm not entirely convinced.
I don't think
he is.
Today, is he?
So so unfortunately we don't have quite the complete grid, but yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got so many people that are making their way into AOR for the first time, and some of them maybe have accumulated more experience elsewhere than others, but absolutely, like you say, to kind of to transfer over to the new league and to be in such a competitive tier at such a high level already and really be competing amongst some drivers that have been around in AOR for quite a while, some that have dropped down from Tier 1 into Tier 2. It is fantastic to see so many of these guys in the grid this evening. So yeah, it's brilliant to see everyone joining, and of course, if you are in the stream chat looking to get involved in some of this yourself, then do head over to the ApexOnline.racing website and get yourself signed up on there of a lot of different championships and sometimes one-off events as well for endurances and the such. We've also got the endurance series that will be starting very, very shortly as well. So a lot of fantastic stuff to get involved with here at AOR. But let's have a bit of a run through our grid order then. So Jamie Nuttall in that 114 car, starting on pole position in dominant fashion. Like you say, will he be able to convert it into out-and-out race pace? We'll have to wait and see. Clearly has the one lap advantage, and he'll be hoping to have a bit of a runaway from the start, like Statsdenko did in Tier 1 yesterday. Almost Sebastian Vettel-esque, just one lap and one lap pace, clean run on the first lap, and then drive away from the field. So have to see what he can do. Justin Stubenrauch in the 445 Honda, starting with him on the front row. Jordan Watson, the first of our Ferraris, and a stellar effort from him as well. Like I say, a lot of bad luck for that man last season, so have to see what he is able to do. Tim Peachman with that last ditch effort gets the McLaren up into the top 5. Brilliant stuff from him. And then last season's P2 man, Christos Podens in the Honda then, instead of the Audi this season, gets himself up into 5th position. Patrick Lipka in the number 1 Audi will be starting in P6, and we've got Daniele Giacomelli in the number 6 car will start just behind him in P7. A bit of a regular, we've got Alessio Mellis in P8. Andras Kuderman in 9th position. That Honda did drop down a little bit down the order in the final stages of qualifying. Wasn't quite able to hold on to that spot. Then we've got Nicholas Hurt in the Visceral Esports car that is looking very, very nice with that livery, I must say. That's definitely a standout on the grid for this evening. Then we've got Florian Duacop in the number 4 Mercedes, the first of our Mercedes, driving for Unicorns of Love, so a big team name in Tier 2, and quite clearly showing that even if it's not a top tier, still a tier for everybody. Then we've got Kieran Patterson, another nice livery on that 123 Ferrari. Then previously Tier 1 regular Greco Makowski in the BMW that is struggling a little bit for pace. He will be having, he will certainly be trying to make a point in Tier 2, but whether or not that M4 is a little bit too behind on raw pace to make it work, I think we'll have to wait and see how he gets on with that, but a lot of experience in that car. We've got Antti Salonen in the Grip Packs Engineering Aston Martin in P14, Lucas Roda in P15 in the 55 McLaren, then Joshua Allen, another returnee, I do believe, in the SPQ Racing Team BMW, Dominic Koroshavin swapping over from the Audi last season into the Aston Martin. We've got a lot of Astons on this grid. Volkan Aichicek in the 67 car, Thomas Jack in 19th position in the McLaren, same livery as last season, I do believe. Jukka Terminen, a Lexus regular in that number 7 car. So see how he gets on. Pasquale De Lucia in the 33, starting 21st. Voltek Neuwirth will start just behind him in 22nd. Ola Pitchik 23rd. Fabian Jeanblanc in 24th. Premeka Struch in 25th. Dominic Gultz, regular in Tier 1, dropping down to Tier 2, so it'll be interesting to see how he can get on. Jay Fang in 27th. Vince van Meerveld, previous fan favourite, I'm sure he'll still be getting some support in the chat, starting in 28th. Matti Laukkanen in 29th. Jack Young 30th. Konstantin Soldatov in 31st. Christian Steinhauser 32nd. Konstantin Romanenko, I think, my graphic cutting off ever so slightly there, will start in 33rd position. Matt York will be in 34th as all the drivers start to speed up a bit and get themselves in formation, but they will be pulling away after Lassource for these starts. Maciej Heiler, very, very quick driver in some of the endurance categories, starting a bit further down the order than maybe we would have expected from him. Christian Deploy in the 95 Mercedes. Jan Climbs in the 329 Porsche, one of only a few Porsches on this grid, starting in 37th. Christian Colagoroso in 38th. Mr. Jones 39th in the pit lane, so that's not looking too good. And then Corentin Vilga in the number 32 Porsche, and that's our entire grid of cars. We are going to have an action-packed one, aren't we?
Yeah, it's going to be really close. I say I am ready to go back and do any replays. If we miss anything, I'll jump back and I can do radio play if we miss anything on the main race. But this is the final run to the line on the opening round of Season XL here at Spa. the best place to maybe start this season, and it's the final run to the green light. Everybody's stacked up. It is such a full grid.
Green light. Go,
And there we go, lights are green.
Good start from Stubenrauch.
Yeah.
Trying to go side by side through Eau Rouge, a few of them darting wide. Skipping that apex of Radion. We're going to have a drag race all the way down to Lake Como. I think Jamie Nuttall leads, and Stubenrauch, Watson, Peachman all getting involved in this as they're almost 4 lines done. I think we've got a big crash on the exit of Radion further around, but Watson trying to go all the way around the outside. He may have made it up in towards P2, trying to just relieve Peachman, pushing off Lipka side wide through Lake On then, but generally everyone getting through. Stubenrauch fights back for P2, then Nuttall does manage to hold on to the lead. Lipka still fighting away with Peachman just behind, but mostly I think getting through cleanly, but a pretty chaotic beginning.
Yeah, I'm just going back to see if we can actually see what caused that incident, so I'll give you a bit of a radio play and we'll try and work out which car.
Oh, that was so close on the exit for Peachman, almost going straight into the wall at No Name Corner. Lipka down the inside in towards Pouon as Krista's getting very, very close on the back of the McLaren there as well. Lipka does get through, but I think Podens has now got for company. That's Mellis in the Ferrari, putting him under some pressure as that's, who is that? Murkowski has made up a brilliant start, I think, from his time position, has made up a few positions already and trying now to go around the outside of the Audi just ahead. I think that is Giacomelli in the number 6 car. In fact, no, it is. Yeah, so Giacomelli, big moment, wide, and almost getting collected by several cars at the bottom of the hill, but just about managing to hold on to the car there, but all getting very, very busy amongst all of these cars. What did we have go on there at Eau Rouge and Radion? Are we any the wiser?
Really sadly, it was a case of rather than contact, it looked like one of the Ferraris. I'm just trying to work out which one it was. There's so many cars in this bundle. I'm just trying to pick through the list and work out which car it was. I think it was car number 33. Yeah, car number 33 just got unsettled. It looked like maybe just cold tyres, not quite up to temperature as he went in. Just got unsettled, and it just meant he was suddenly going very slow on a very fast bit of the circuit. And as we see so many times, that concertina effect, yeah, just mid-turn he slides, and he's really struggling to keep it in check. He does actually move over to the left rather than sort of, trying to stay on the circuit when he was slow, but it just a concertina, and sadly quite a few guys got caught up in that.
Sorry, we've got Christus Podens in the wall on the exit of Radion, losing it through that section there, just about managing to stay out of everyone's way as they climb up towards Lake Com. There's a drag race between, that is Terminant going side by side with one of the other cars, that is Jean Blanc going down the inside towards Lake On, but the Honda unfortunately coming unstuck through Eau Rouge and Radion. Then 511 car going down the inside through turn 9 and managing to get through. Thomas Jack now trying to put some pressure on around the outside as well. But yeah, that Eau Rouge section, so tricky. I see we've already got quite a few cars unfortunately diving into the pits already, and hope not too many retirements. I see some cars making their way out, so repairing some damage, but some drivers unfortunately already coming unstuck around the demanding undulation at Spa-Francorchamps. But yeah, very tricky start for some of these guys.
Yeah, real shame. There's some big names in the pit. We've got Jay Fang, Wilka, Romanenko, Pichik, Mr. Jones, who started in the pit, so he may actually still just be there. DeLucia and Lukanen, all of them all in the pit, and that's a real shame. The only upside to this is they have to do a mandatory stop. So if they can manage the tyres for a full hour, they can use this moment to do their mandatory stop. It's not particularly great. They're still going to lose time, but all is not lost if they can manage to stay on the lead lap. I see Mr. Jones is now on the roll out, so he may be able to stay on the lead lap if he can get out quickly. Yeah, a couple of other cars moving. Wilga, Jay Fang, and I saw someone else. That's still Mr. Jones. So a few cars looking like they're going to be able to stay on the lead lap. So all is not lost for them. It is an hour, and it is Spa. so there is a possibility that people will drop out. And someone who is not making as much of an escape as I thought they might do is Mr. Nuttall. He is not escaping yet. He is
Oh,
very much
sorry to cut you off there. Thomas Jack tried a bit of a Daniel Ricciardo-esque braking move on Terminal in towards turn 1 there, and unfortunately completely miscalculated the overlap with the Lexus, and they did make contact through the source. I think came away from that fairly unscathed, all things considered, although it has allowed Heiler to put some pressure onto the Lexus ahead. But yeah, very, very unfortunate stuff there. But we also saw Podens in the background diving towards the pits, which understandably so, considering damage on that car. Thomas Jack looking pretty pacey in the McLaren, trying to go around the outside in towards Lacon, recovering those positions. I think he's gone too wide, though. That might allow Matt York to get past him. A big wiggle on the apex, and now coming under pressure from Dominic Goldsdale as well. There's contact between those two. Dominic Goldsdale also almost goes around, but just about manages to hold onto the car. And that allows Meerveld and Jack Young to get through amongst all of that. So chaos still going on down outside the top 20.
I think a little bit of a desperation to get back on the circuit after losing a position there, maybe from Mr. Jack. A little bit slightly, yeah, just maybe rejoined a little bit hastily and understandably, just trying to get himself back on the circuit and going. I'm very lucky that there was no sort of larger incident from that. I mean, maybe that car carrying a little bit of damage after he had that incident at turn 1, and this circuit really does demand quite a lot of downforce. Sort of once your rear end goes, especially as you come down towards the bottom of the hill, you really need that back end to stick, and we may see that through Blanchimont, whether the back of that McLaren sticks or whether it lets go. And I have noticed the Ferraris are all looking very squirrely through Bradillion. So we'll have to wait and see on that, and that might explain why we on term. Obviously, that first lap we had one of them let go. I did notice. I think it was Heiler. He looked very, very unsettled through there, and that is pretty unusual for Heiler. He is a man that can just absolutely churn out the laps hour after hour. Oh, and he's actually gone into the pit. Heiler straight into the pits already.
Very early pit stops then.
Yeah, I say he was in the Endurance Championship. He was a Tier 1 driver, and he's had a 7th and a 2nd for his team in the Endurance Championship. So he is no rookie at AOR, just not a particularly weathered sprint driver. We'll say that. We'll say weathered sprint driver. It's a nice way of putting it. Oh, Nuttall putting in the fastest lap now, the 2:17. So still way off the pace, but I mean, for an opening lap, he's probably carrying a lot of fuel at the moment. At least half the race.
We've got a yellow flag out for. Oh, that is Podens, I believe, down the start-finish straight, maybe letting some drivers by, because I do believe he is a lap down. I didn't see if he got caught up in a collision. We also saw on screen Kuderman and Duacop going side by side towards Lacom. The number 16 car able to hold on to that position. But I do want to raise some attention to this man, the number 11 car, the BMW of Krzysztof Makowski, also known as Greco, up into P7. He has been charging his way up the order, and that BMW maybe not the most competitive outright in terms of pace here. What was that going on there between that? Peachman trying to get past a back marker, I believe, just in front, so that wasn't for position. But that BMW, fantastic racecraft from the number 11 car, and really showcasing that he may have moved down from Tier 1, but certainly has a big point to prove here in Tier 2 and bringing all of that wealth of experience into this, trying to navigate his way up the order. And maybe when we make our way to some circuits where that BMW is a bit more competitive, maybe we'll see him in a more prime position to be battling out the very front. But fantastic stuff there from him.
Speaking of people fantastic, look at Nuttall. He's already pulled away. He's now done it. He is now broken away by 1.4 seconds. So what I said earlier on, throw that in the rubbish. Absolute nonsense I was talking. There's quite a few cars that obviously had to do that pit stop earlier. Was it car number 31 that had that yellow flag? Because I am completely unable to find car number 31. So either I am blind, highly likely, I do wear glasses, or he's left the server, but I don't think he has. Possibly not.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. We also just saw another car diving into the pits. We've also got swapping of positions between Thomas Jack and Matt Yule. Matt Yule trying to go down the inside in towards last source. We saw it go wrong for Jack in the 13 car at this corner before. He does manage to hold it around the outside very, very nicely. We'll go on board with the Aston Martin as he looks to try to hunt down that car just up ahead, but he's also got a little bit of company on the diffuser. He's got the Audi of Meerveld just behind. Maybe not quite the rocket ship, but it used to be up the Kemmel Straight. But a little bit of a three-way tussle for these positions there. Time ball taking a while to... Oh, that's a yellow flag for the... who is that for? It's the 32 car
That's
at the end of
Corus
lane. Oh, it's a backmapper coming out right in front of that three-way fight. Somehow just about manages to keep out the way of the likes of Thomas Jack and Matt York, but that got very, very tricky, and I'm sure that Thomas Jack, when he came across that, he would have, well, suddenly taken in a deep breath and trying to suck in the sides of that car as much as possible. But, yeah, busy action further down the order, and just keeping an eye on that kind of front group. As you say, Jamie Nuttall pulling away at this stage in the race. Only man in the 217s at the moment. But Jordan Watson not letting go of the back of that 445 car. The Ferrari doing a good job at trying to stick with the pace of the Honda that does seem to have, generally speaking, been the fastest car across both tiers that we've seen over the last couple of days. But Jordan Watson in that car is certainly giving it a good go to try to keep up with the pace of that Honda and doing a stellar effort to try to get what I think could potentially be his first podium in Tier 2. I know he came close on a couple of occasions, and in actual fact, thinking about a move potentially towards bus stop chicane. Now, in actual fact, it's Peachman. Oh, it's tagged the back of Lipka, and Lipka goes very wide, just about manages to hold on to the car, skips the second part of the chicane, but he was an absolute passenger there. Peachman, I would imagine, will stay behind him going towards last source, because obviously the advantage he has over the Audi on that run was purely down to that slight misjudgment under brakes as he gets very, very close to the rear bumper again. But thankfully not too much damage done amongst all of those cars. But again, just showing how close to the limit all of these drivers are.
Yeah, I think he definitely let off the throttle there just down towards turn 1. I think there was a definite lift just before the braking zone. He's then sort of let the gap equalise, said, okay, I haven't taken advantage, but then immediately went for that break, tried to go again into turn 1. So fair play to him for throwing it and trying to close the gap up. And he might have a look here, the end of the Kemmel Straight, he's up the inside, he's got a little bit of an overlap, but...
Oh, that's so close! He runs the Audi off the circuit. Lipka, I mean, what the spatial awareness, I have to say, in that green Audi, he gave him as much room as he needed to not make contact there. That was fantastic awareness from him, but I'm sure that that number 1 Audi may be getting a little bit frustrated about the late braking of that 494, but that was so close to contact, wasn't it?
I don't think you could have got a cigarette paper between those two. I don't think you could have got a Rizzler in there at all. That was, I reckon there might have been a little bit of flexing on the carbon fibre panels. Those two were so close. I mean, and it's so risky as well, and obviously, you know, it is a simulation, but sometimes there are obscure things that happen with the simulation, and you can have a tiny touch like that, and they barely would, like, just near each other, and the game will suddenly go, oh, that's a huge collision, and will fling the Audi. So really lucky to get away with the sort of with the algorithm there as well. I imagine to not get caught out by it. Nuttall 2.5 seconds out in front, so the only thing is going to be, can that car do it on the tyres? Is he going to cook his tyres? Because that is a massive pace straight out the gate to be going that quickly. I mean, he's flying away from everyone at the moment now. What's he done? Still got the fastest lap with a 2:17.8.
Watson all the way around the outside, sorry, on the brakes towards the bus stop, goes a bit deep though, and Stewart Rauch will hold on to it. Also Peachman and Lipka going side by side, once again cleaner than they were last time around though, but I think the McLaren maybe had a little bit of a run on the Audi. Does Lipka defend the inside going towards last source? I think he's going to have to, because that McLaren looking very, very feisty. These two obviously having come together already. Will there be a drag race up towards Eau Rouge? Surely they don't go side by side. We're on board the rear diffuser of the Audi. You can see as a face full of that bright yellow McLaren filling up the gearbox of the Audi, but just about managing to stick behind for the time being. That'll be potentially a track limit warning for the McLaren, but he's carrying the momentum up the Kemmel Straight, going around the outside now of the number 1 car. maybe we'll have enough straight line speed to make the move stick this time. The McLaren does seem to be generally quicker in a straight line, trying to go all the way around the outside into Lacon. They've made contact here before. Lipka showing him the door on the exit, but the Audi stays strong in the defence. Mellis now trying to get involved in this as well, and they may even get come back. Oh, it's that McLaren almost going across the front of that Ferrari, flashing of lights. Not too happy with that one. It's allowed Greco and Kuderman to get involved in this one as well, and suddenly a fight that was just isolated between these guys for P4 ends up being a six-way tussle for P5.
Yeah, Mellis read that perfectly, didn't he? He saw that they were slowing each other down through that chicane at the top of the hill, and he just was closing in on them. But there's eight. That the 494 car just managed to shut the door. Yeah, and obviously
Sorry to cut you off. Tiny bit of contact between the Unicorns of Love car, the number 4, and Kuderman, who did an astonishing job to hold on to that one. They made contact through Pouon there, and somehow just about, I couldn't quite catch it on the replay unfortunately, but somehow just about managed to keep the car pointing in a straight line. But that was so close to being raced over for the number 16 car. Brilliant car control. Sorry to cut you off there, Tim, but that was a very, very terrifying moment, I'm sure, not just to watch, but imagine Kuderman. That was a bit of a scare for him behind the wheel.
Yeah, one of those odd ones again. It almost looked more sort of like, I'm just watching back on the replay now. It did almost look more like it was an in-game sort of engine thing. Like I said about how sometimes the collision isn't that big, but it really shows up. It did look quite a lot like that was more a case of what's gone on with my screen? I've got double screen somehow. This is a new one. I've never seen this before.
Well, whilst your double screens are going on, we've also got two cars going side by side towards turn 1. That's Nicholas Hurt trying to go down the inside of Dominic Koroshavin. He does get through, much cleaner move, and some of those that we've seen already going into Lassal's, but the Visual Esports McLaren, the 303 car, does make his way up there. But yeah, side by side action into Lassal's once more.
Car number 28, that's off at the top of the Camel Straight, I think. What happened there?
We've got McLaren, the 494s. They're just coming across that point on the circuit, but Tim Peachman went to the grass to make that move, and he's gone deep again. Lipka trying to go back around the outside through this series of corners. We've seen this happen once already, but the Audi does stay strong, and Mellis once again trying to see if he can get involved in this. There's a yellow flag on the exit of Lacombe, I think, for the 324 car. I can't quite see who that is on my screen, but yeah, a few drivers seem to be having issues with that part of the circuit.
Yeah, I think it might be car number 29 I saw a yellow flag for, but yeah, Mellis now really on the attack, isn't he? Sorry, is that Mellis? No, it is Mellis. Why am I seeing something? Oh, yes, it is. My time screen's very wrong. I think there's some issues going on with my timing screen. I'm going to ignore it for now, then just go off of this one, because it's showing some slightly odd cars. That is that number 15, isn't it? That is with Mellis.
It is Mellis indeed, yeah. He's got Peachman just ahead, and then McCoskey in the 11 BMW just behind.
Yeah, my timing screen's gone completely wrong, so we're going to ignore that and I'll just watch the racing. There we go, I think it's finally caught up. It was very confusing for a moment. It was showing Lipka and Peachman in different positions, so gotta love her. Gotta love it.
Yes, unfortunately, sometimes ACC does have a few moments to make it a bit tricky to follow along with, but Jordan Watson down towards the bus stop chicane again, trying to go around the outside. All of this battling has allowed Jamie Nuttall to extend his lead now to over 3.5 seconds out front. The Honda, though, of Stubenrauch staying strong for the time being and keeping that Ferrari behind, but it does look like as Kuderman's come into the pits, maybe repairing a bit of damage earlier on from that contact with the Unicorns of Love Mercedes. But yeah, these two still battling very, very hard for that second place position, but the Honda able to hold on for the time being. We've also just seen in the chat, unfortunately, we've had a power cut for one of our drivers as the Ferrari of Watson there bobs through the surface of the map, but that doesn't seem to have slowed him up, because he's trying to go around the outside. It's a big run for the Ferrari, maybe enough of an overlap this time around, and he does make it, although has he gone too deep? No, he does get it stuck on the apex in the end. I thought the gap that opened up between himself and Stubenrauch on the braking zone, I thought that he'd gone way too deep, but the Ferrari, for the first time in this race, after 20 minutes of looking at the gearbox of that Honda, finally makes his way up into P2. As what's happened there between Mellis and Greco. Makowski then has managed to get past, and it all got rather busy. I think it was Peachman and Lipka battling further ahead, and then what happened with the Ferrari? So, oh, that was Mellis, just went super deep on the brakes there, tried to rejoin, and in the process of doing so, Makowski, showing his racecraft experience, did manage to sneak through.
Mellis has just gone off to the side of the circuit and let quite a few cars through there. So, not sure what happened there, but he let, who was that? He let all the way back to car number 5. He let, like, all the way back to road, I think he just let through. He definitely let through the Mercedes. The Mercedes now running in front of him, followed by the Ferrari. And yeah, there we go. Mellis down to 10th now. Not sure what happened there, whether that was the car totally unsettled and he couldn't keep it on the circuit. I mean, as we said, if he's carrying any damage in these high-speed corners, it will really affect you. And he managed to not actually rotate. But we'll see what happens here through Bonchemont, whether or not he's going to be able to hold it under speed. And the car looked pretty settled there, so I don't know what went on, but he lost quite a few positions.
Oh, that's pattern up the inside of Duocop, and immediately then, the penalty! Oh, would you believe it? They still somehow managed to go side by side on the entry to the pit lane. Well, I have never seen something like that. I've seen many of things with Spa-Francorchamps, and I've seen many a pit entry, but both drivers were making contact on the entry to the bus stop chicane. I think both of them getting a small amount of damage and deciding to head to the pit lane as a result, and somehow managed to fit 2 cars through that pit lane entry. And in the end, it was the 1-2-3 car that came out in front, but those cars, I imagine, are going to be heavily beaten up because they both got big impacts on the walls as they went through there. But that was something very unusual, as something that's a bit more common, as Peachman again trying to go around the outside of Lipka. This looked maybe a bit more of a stronger attempt from McLaren. Lipka fighting it on the outside, but McLaren might have the run, but the Audi keeping his foot in the door and trying to see if he can outpace him now down towards the bottom of the hill, in towards Bruxelles, but the McLaren does get ahead. Can the Audi go around the outside? Oh, he comes back to the inside, maybe trying to sneak through. McLaren has to respect that room, surely, but the McLaren of the 494 car on the hands of Peachman just about manages to hold on to it. That's a big moment for Lipka through no-name corner, and now maybe has a bit of company from the BMW of Makowski behind. He's been rubbing his hands together down the inside in towards Pulon, and just about manages to keep his nose clean. Flashes the lights. I don't think he was too happy with Lipka shutting the door there, but somehow, some way, Lipka only losing 1 position, all of that, but Peachman finally gets into that P4 spot and reclaims where he started in this grid. But my goodness, what a series of events in the last 30 seconds.
I mean, I saw an incident on pit entry in Tier 1, and I thought, that won't happen in Tier 2, but here we are, 2 nights on the trot, in the exact same place on the circuit. I do think that will definitely be under investigation, and I think the Mercedes might come off worse, as he didn't actually use the official pit entry. He came into the left of the entry cone on the green tarmac. I mean, obviously, he could argue that he was unable to get back across after, going a bit deep in the bus stop, but I would not want to be on the incident review team. Oh, there we go. And Makowski, after closing in on the back of these two, obviously deciding, I don't want to get involved in this battle. I'm going straight in the pits and getting my pit stop done, because these two are definitely slowing each other down. We saw how quickly the BMW caught up. Actually, I think he qualified in 12th, and he was all the way up to 6th,
P7, I do believe,
P7,
before, because I think he had someone else pit behind him. But yeah, he has been doing fantastically this race, and in the BMW as well, which, well, whilst maybe in previous seasons we would have thought, well, that car, there was a time with that car when it was fresh to the game, really did dominate. And then it's just been rather brutalised through these last bits of BOP treatment, but using that racecraft and the patience, he has managed to climb his way up the order. And absolutely, if these two continue to battle, and Makowski feels like he has the pace to maybe go for that undercut, we're just before the halfway mark in this race, then that could seriously allow him to maybe make up not just one spot but 2 spots, because these two so close together on track at the moment. So I have to see how all of that pans out. But yeah, very interesting phase of the race with all of that. We've also got Meerveld and Matt York further down that have pitted that are nose to tail on the pit lane entry. Those two, we saw a bit of lovely side-by-side action on screen just a couple of laps ago, so I'm sure they will emerge close on track out of the pit lane as well. As we've also got Colagrosso and Terminant quite close on track. So we've got a few battles going on at the moment, but we are entering that interesting phase of the race where it will be a case of how does strategy start to factor into all of this.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to do, is come out the pit and end up in traffic, and it can happen to anyone, especially where there was that incident on lap 1. There are cars totally off the pace. Yes, they're going to be under blue flag orders, but it's still... They don't have to get out of your way, they just can't defend. They can stick on their racing line. It is your job to get past. So, let's just say Nuttall, Watson, Stubenrausch, they can catch up with these guys, and they are not obligated to get out of their way. So it's, you know, really a case of waiting and see what happens, and just trying to play the strategy correctly. And it is really difficult on your own, especially a circuit like this where your mind is constantly going, oh, load of people into the pits. Watson, Stubenrausch, Hertz, Salonen, all into the pits. So people starting to come in. It's around the halfway mark. Now, just over 25 minutes of the race done so far. So obviously people going to a slightly longer run. I'd just like to say something. Mini Simeon. I think it was Mini Simeon. Oh no, it wasn't. It was Astra Hertz. Imagine racing with a G29. I'll have you know that I race with one of those. Thank you very much. Yes,
so do I. So unfortunately, you've offended both commentators at the same time.
Yeah, both of us. All right. And this man within Tier 1. I'm rubbish. I'm very slow. I just sort of bumble around, and I usually just show up and just go like, hello. But John, Mr. JSR, on the other hand, he was a Tier 1 driver. So he not the wheel, it's how you use it. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's amazing. I mean, also there's a bit of a backstory with the likes of Amir Saini, Tier 1 driver, and for so long he was on a setup that, you know, puts the likes of ours to shame. I think he had, it might have even been a G25, a G27 attached to a wooden desk, and had a 4x3 monitor, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And he has always been ridiculously quick. So yeah, absolutely, you know, it is very much about the driver and not so much the equipment, although it can sometimes help. Florian Duakop in the Mercedes, after repairing, I imagine, some of that damage, has come out behind Lucas Roda and is battling with him on circuit. Hasn't been able to find a way through just yet. We've also got Kuderman and Mikoski, who have now both completed their pit stops and are very, very close. And this could put a bit of a spanner in the works for the BMW's undercut, potentially, because if those two battle, they may end up losing some time, as that Honda's looking very, very quick down the back straight, up the Kemmel straight towards Lecom, now pulling towards the inside. Surprisingly, the BMW not defending it, although maybe we'll be able to hold it on the brakes. Oh, as the Honda goes very, very much in towards the inside of that corner and completely clears Mikoski before they even get to the main apex. A brilliant move there from Andras Kuderman in the number 16 Honda as he tries to charge his way up, but that could maybe affect their attempts to catch up to the likes of Peachman and Lipka, although Peachman has come into the pit, so it'd be interesting to see how that all shuffles around.
Yeah, we have Joshua Allen in the pit as well, and also Jamie Nuttall pitted as well. So our leader is into the pit, so going to be interested to see where he comes out. He's still on his roll into the pits. He's just coming down the hill into the endurance pit. It is such a long pit here. I mean, as we saw earlier on, a couple of people taking some artistic lines through Radeon. And the issue is, if they're going to pick up these penalties, they've really got to be careful, because you know, a drive-through penalty here at Spa is a death sentence. As we saw these guys on lap 1 when they had to pit for damage. I mean,
oh, speaking of which, Stubenrausch, drive-through penalty for the man that was running P3 in this race. So disaster for the 445 car, who, after a duel with Watson in the 147 for so long, doesn't end up coming unstuck from the battle, but it ends up being track limits. So just as we were talking about it, that is a huge, huge disaster, and that is going to allow, as he comes into the pits now to serve that, that's going to allow the likes of Kuderman and McCoskey to gain positions, as just want to keep an eye on where is Peachman amongst all of this, because McCoskey and Kuderman now coming down the start-finish straight, they're already in La Source, and that McLaren is just on the run towards the exit of the pit lane now, so it's going to be potentially quite close between those guys. I'm trying to pick up where they have got to. They're just coming up through Eau Rouge and Radion now. Where is Peachman? He's a little bit further up, but there's going to be a huge overspeed for the Honda and the BMW, but I think potentially the 494 has done just enough. You can see that white Honda gaining and filling up more of this rear view on the McLaren, but Peachman does hold on, and that will change now into a podium position with that penalty for Stubenrauch. So now this is a three-way tussle, potentially a four-way tussle, with Lipka having now just pitted for the last of the podium spots.
Well, what I find surprising is car number 11, the BMW. We thought he would gain a position over car number 494, didn't we? We were pretty convinced, but actually he's not. If anything, he's down a position. He's got that Honda in between them, who is, which Honda is that? That's Kuderman. So I mean, not quite able. Oh, there we go. Pretty much everyone to the pits now. Lipka. So it can be interesting to see where these guys come out. I mean, Nuttall, I'm imagining, is going to re-inherit the lead. But it'll be interesting to see where some of these guys come out compared to obviously people like who we got Watson and I suppose Peachman. How are they going to slot in? Are they going to fit?
Yeah, it's going to be a big unknown in that regard, isn't it? And we should get an answer fairly soon, although something that may actually compromise these guys, because although he didn't put up too much of a fight initially in his defence of the Honda, McCoskey now trying to maybe get a run on towards Kuderman, down towards the bus stop chicane. He's gained several places in this race already. Kuderman defends the inside very, very heavily, but the BMW ends up being too far adrift. But yeah, Lipka will be emerging from the pit lane very shortly, so we'll certainly get our answer on where he emerges amongst all of this. But Peachman, must be said, look how much of a gap he opened up to these two. He pitted later. He's had to have gone through that process, getting the tyres up to temperature, but he's immediately gapped these two, and now it ends up being potentially a battle between himself and Lipka, who is just heading towards the end of the pit lane now, as Peachman is going to be hitting Eau Rouge and Radion. You can see that green Audi on the right-hand side, and I think Peachman has managed to get him in the pit stops, and he has. In actual fact, the Audi of Lipka now has got pressure from both of the Honda and the BMW, who also go through. It's a disaster then for the number one car, who, after being in what would have been P3 in this race for quite a while, drops all the way down to P8. Or P6, effectively, sorry, after those top two do their pit stops.
I think, and that is just what happens when you're trying to work out these different pit strategies. What I would say is, I wonder if we obviously saw Macadowski just hanging back and playing the game, trying to work out when to pass. I wonder if some of that is because of his endurance experience. He knows from his endurance days it's better to stick with them, just keep staying behind, and then waiting to push past when a mistake happens, whereas he's got a lot less time. You think this man is used to doing 6, 9, 12-hour-long races. In this situation, being an hour long, he has got to push that a little bit harder. I wonder as the season continues on, he gets used to the grid, gets more used to these shorter, more intense races, if we're going to see a slightly more aggressive Macadowski, because I would even say over this half an hour of watching him race, his driving style definitely seems to have gone slightly more aggressive. He's gone from sort of being something like that placid, dependable sort of Labrador that you know what he's going to do, to now he is this Jack Russell absolutely at the heels of Kuderman, and I would say he's closing in on the back of that Honda. And if I was Kuderman, I would really be nervous, because he is such a good driver. But then again, Kuderman, he was tier 1 on the PS5 series, so 10th in last season. So he's a quick driver himself, but it does just show how people sort of change their driving style depending on what they need. And Watson just put in the fastest lap of this.
I was just about to highlight that, yeah, because It wasn't by much in terms of the advantage to Nuttall, but bearing in mind that Nuttall had a 3.5-second lead earlier on in this race, and we go on board with Jordan Watson then as the last two of our pitters come in, Thomas Jack and Terminen do their pit stops, and that white Honda that we haven't looked at in a long time and just sort of felt like it disappeared off into the distance. Now the gap is only just about 2 seconds between these guys, and Watson, it may only be a small amount, but he does just seem to be reeling in that lead Honda of Jamie Nuttall. And you know, with 25 minutes left of racing to go, if Watson can gain enough to get potentially into a position where he's in the toe, and that can see him make a move into a braking zone, we could end up with a fight on our hands for the race win in the closing stages of this race.
Yeah, we are yet to see how Jamie Nuttall drives when he's under pressure. You know, what is his driving style when he's under pressure? We've seen him do these amazing laps. He obviously got his strategy bang on. That seemed to work. But yeah, at the beginning of this race, it was a 2.5-second lead. Now 1.8 seconds. So Watson obviously really showing some decent long-term race pace. It's been 35 minutes of racing, which doesn't seem like that much, but it is such a physical effort. Even if you're in a sim rig, it is a lot of effort. They will be hot, sweating, probably pretty thirsty already by this point. You know, there is no let up. These guys don't have any time apart from the Kemmel Straight to have a breather and have a think. Oh, and actually Nuttall went wide there just as he's coming on to this long downhill, well, sort of the bottom end of the circuit. So got to be careful he doesn't push too hard and end up getting himself a drive through, because that will be detrimental. Coming through Blanchimont there. It looks really planted, the Honda, though, doesn't it? It does look really well positioned. The setup he's using, the way he drives, does seem to be working great, and he has ever so slightly stretched out that lead again by 0.1 of a second. We'll see what happens as they cross the line. What is their gap? Put it back up to 2. So it's just going to be a case of where the cars are strongest, I'm presuming. It's got to be that the Honda is stronger in different areas. So we've seen the Ferrari be very skittish up through Raidillon. So what can be done? How will it work?
Yeah, absolutely. The Honda does seem to have been very, very quick over these last couple of days, and yeah, Jamie Nuttall doing exactly what he needs to do and just respond. He doesn't need to do a lot. He's got a nice advantage, but he does need to make sure that Watson doesn't reel him in too much. We saw a nice bit of side-by-side action between Neuwirth and Giacomelli in the bus stop chicane, and Anthony Salonen in the other Aston Martin just behind, getting involved in this one as well. But the Aston Martin, the 63 car, maybe now has a run down the Kemmel Straight, going to the outside of the number 6 of Daniele, trying to see if he can make it stick in towards Lecom. We've got a yellow flag for the number 14 car. I'm not sure who that's for, but Neuwirth trying to go around the outside. A little bit of contact on the entry to the apex there. Salonen trying to pick his way through this and see if he can capitalise on any of this battling. Still side by side, these two. Neuwirth keeping his foot in it around the outside, down the bottom of the hill for Bruxelles, and Salonen now trying to see if he can do anything, but I think he's a little bit too far back. As also further down, battle between Thomas Jack and Yuko Terminen. I think those two were going side by side through Lecom, and it was the McLaren that came out on top. The big bad Lexus is unfortunately a little bit of a heffalump in the modern BOP for this sim, so unfortunately it's not always the easiest to get around these circuits, but Terminen seems to be a bit of a dedicated representative of the Lexus, and still doing a fine job to be duking out around the top 20. Is he giving Thomas Jack another hard time, trying to go around the outside in towards turn 13, but can't do anything yet.
But he's catching back up again, isn't he? I mean, obviously he went for that move, wasn't able to do it, but he has closed the gap back up again quite quickly. I'm
sorry to cut you off. Speaking of which, Bukowski has closed up the back of the number 16, trying to go around the outside. It was bus stop chicane, a little bit of contact. Kuderman goes wide on the exit. Lipka sneaks through as well, and maybe now trying to see if he can line up a move on the BMW ahead. Bukowski defending the inside. Kuderman won't be pleased about that one. Has allowed the BMW to sneak his way up into P4. Kuderman trying to see if he can get past on the inside of La Source. It's going to be a drag race down towards the bottom of Eau Rouge, and we'll go on board with the number 16 car, and we know that the Honda is quick in a straight line. The BMW, I think, maybe will struggle a little bit up the Kemmel Straight. How do they all fare to Eau Rouge? A little drift for Kuhnmann there. Not the run that he would have wanted. How is Lipka faring? Just up ahead. He's firmly locked into the slipstream of the BMW. He's gaining down the Kemmel Straight, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. Mikoski thinks about defending the inside line. Lipka shows his known. Mikoski very fairly gives him the room on the apex, but does manage to hold off the charge. But will there be a steward's inquiry? I thought there was going to be contact between him and the Audi there as they went through turn 7, 8 and 9, but just about managing to hold on all over the gearbox of the BMW, but somehow managing to remain out of it. And all of that battling once more has allowed the likes of Mellis and Hertz to join in this one as well. So getting very, very busy, but I'm sure Kuhnmann won't be too pleased about how that all fared out the bus stop chicane.
No, it was a bit of a... it's hard to tell, isn't it? Especially from this sort of angle. Luckily, we are not the ones that have to make the final decision. But, to be fair, look at this down at the bottom of the hill. We're trying to run the outside. Can he do it? Lipka, a little bit of a nudge. And again,
flashing the lights.
Malinowski's just holding it together. I don't think... I mean, like we said, he's such a consistent driver. He knows where to place the car. He knows where the Audi's strong, and he's just put in the BMW right in the way. I mean, you only have to look at him going up the Kemmel Straight. He stayed all the way to the left for as long as possible. You're allowed one movement to defend, and obviously then you can get back to your braking line. He stayed to the left and just hung there for as long as he could before going slightly defensive, just a little tweak to the middle of the road. God, the Audi was quick through down. I think he might have a run down towards the bus stop here. Mellis as well might have a little bit of a run on Kuhnmann. Not quite, very close.
Yeah, everyone trying to pick a line on the braking zone, aren't they? They're just not sure if they need to defend or if they don't need to defend. And the problem is if you defend unnecessarily, that makes you vulnerable then for the next series of corners. And they all ended up kind of following each other line astern, but Lipka all over the back of that BMW gearbox once more. And I imagine we will definitely see another drag race towards Lake On, because that Audi was flashing the lights last time. It wasn't too happy about what went down, and I think there's going to be action between these two once more. A very trimmed line, we'll say there. Oh, who just got drive-through? Oh, it's Kuhnmann! Just behind amongst all of this battle. The number 16 car gets the drive-through penalty. It's a disaster for the Honda, but Lipka has managed to get down the inside of the BMW, trying to see if he can make his way through in towards P4, just about giving each other enough space. Oh, as BMW really runs in wide on the exit there. Mellis now getting involved in this, trying to get past Kuhnmann. That's not realistically for position because of that drive-through, but Nicholas Hurt now is trying to go on the inside of Mellis after he compromised his line in that battle with the Honda, the Visceral Esports McLaren, trying to sneak his way through into Bruxelles, and he does. Lucas Roder was looking around there as well, but wasn't able to take advantage. But Mellis then, well, he'll be rather disappointed with that, tried to get past Kuhnmann in the process, who really is not in this fight anymore, and ended up losing a position in the process. But Lipka and Mikoski side by side again, and will there be questions said about Mikoski on the exit of turn 8 there? Did seem to kind of show the Audi a little bit towards the edge of the track, and wasn't the first time that number 1 car has flashed its lights. So whether there'll be inquiries after that, we'll have to see. But very, very close and tight action between them. But disaster for the number 16.
Yeah, I mean, as we said earlier on, I said you've got to be so careful, and it's so hard to just think to yourself, I need to slow down before I hit Radion. I need to make sure I'm going to get through cleanly, because it only takes the slightest bump and the car will go off, and you're going to lose a position if you let off the throttle, obviously on the exit of the turn, or you can unsettle the car. You've got to make your decision quite early on for Radion. It's not something you can decide as you're turning in. You've got to think to yourself, oh, Mellis trying to go side by side. Can he hold on to it? He's on the inside. Oh, that's obviously the drive-through. I got very confused for a moment as to what was going on. But yeah, in the background of this now, that's Mellis versus Hurt, I believe. Yeah, Hurt's going to have the inside line down into turn 1.
Oh, Roder trying to sneak through as well. Mellis may end up coming unstuck again. Yeah, drag race between the Ferrari and the McLaren on the exit. Mellis, it was a fantastic attempt towards the bus stop chicane. Side-by-side action towards O'Rouge and Radion. That never ends fantastically well. Roder keeping his foot in. Mellis keeping his foot as well. Has to jump to the exit there. And now the Unicorns love Mercedes. Oh, big contact in the background there. Mellis, the Mercedes there, and one of the other Ferraris. Who was that? So Aston Martin, excuse me. Amongst all that as well, that's Koroshavin and disaster. But further up the field, Patrick Lipka and Mikoski go side by side again. The Audi may may have done it this time around, trying to go around the outside. Oh, is he shoved off into the gravel by the BMW? And now Nicholas Hurt takes another freebie and finds his way into P5 after just a few laps ago being down in P8. He is now in the top 5 of this group and sets his sights towards the BMW just up ahead. But my goodness, that all got ridiculously action-packed very, very quickly. And Colagrosso now trying to get past Koroshavin, who is very, very wounded and gets a bit of extra damage, unfortunately, for his troubles by the number 44 McLaren. But that reminded me of an incident. I think it was in one of the Formula Junior series, something like Formula 3, Formula Renault, as there was a driver very wide on the exit of Eau Rouge and Radion, then trying to squeeze through across the track on the outside, and there they just about made it through, but unfortunately this time round there just was not enough space for them to go 3 wide through there, and a huge series of impacts for Melis, the Unicorns Lund Mercedes, who I forget who was in that car. That was Florian Duacop and Koroshavin. Big disasters for each of those drivers.
Yeah, that was... Oh, I mean, what can you say, really? It was one of those incidents where you can see why people were trying to take advantage of the slower cars, but the Mercedes was well off track trying to go around the outside. And obviously on the rejoin, it was not going well.
Yeah, that was unfortunately, it started off with the side-by-side action between the two ahead, which actually, surprisingly, we kind of thought that maybe was going to be what caused the incident, but those two, Melis did take to the escape road over the apex in towards Radion, but they did manage to get through there cleanly, but of course they compromised each other's lines, and then that was what gave the Mercedes of Florian behind the overspeed, and it just unfortunately got a little bit too tight and tricky to negotiate from there. But we've got another 3-way tussle closing in once more, because Lipka did drop behind the McLaren of Nicholas Hurt after he was sent wide on the exit of Les Combes. Not sure if he'll be able to do anything about the McLaren up ahead, but Nicholas Hurt very, very quick in a straight line, showing his nose towards the BMW of the 11 car, but unable to do anything. So we may have another 3-way tussle in just a moment and see how that one all fares. But after so long as... What's going on further down the order? We've got 3 wide with Thomas Jack, Alessio Melis and Koroshavin up the Kemmel Straight. Yuka Terminen in the Lexus filtering away through this. 2 of these cars very, very wounded, obviously, amongst all of that action at the top of the hill. The Lexus makes it past 1. I'm sure he'll make his way past the Ferrari head quite shortly, because there was a lot of damage on that car, but still very, very busy stuff in the final quarter of this race. As I can't tell if that is purposeful or not, but Tim, you are muted in the Discord. Hope everything is okay at your end. Terminen, meanwhile, is up the inside, down in towards P1, does manage to get past the wounded Ferrari of Alessio Melis, who continues to drop down the order. Checking in, though, in this other battle for P4. Perhaps not cars we would have expected to be around this area of the positions, because Mikoski started down in P12, benefited a little bit from some of the drive-throus that these drivers have had, but is now coming under threat from Nicholas Hurt, who senses his chances around the outside in towards the bus stop chicane. The visual esports McLaren, they both go very, very wide. Oh, and the McLaren sent off on the exit of the bus stop. Lipka now trying to find a way through and see if he can get a cut back towards the start-finish straight and in towards La Source. But Nicholas Hurt then does find his way through, maybe not in the way that he expected. Oh, that's getting very, very tricky. I'm not sure if he was trying to let through the BMW of Mikoski. But now Lipka sneaking through, maybe does have the drive on the exit. Can he get it done? And he does, up in towards P5. The Audi then goes. Will it be a 4-way tussle, though, down towards Les Combes as they head up the Kemmel Straight once more. Big send through Eau Rouge and Radion for the number 11 car. Maybe will have a run towards the end of the straight. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to do anything, just not enough straight line speed in that car. Oh, as Lipka goes very, very deep on the brakes and he tags Nicholas Hurt, who just about manages to keep it pointing the right way. Does keep both cars behind. Lipka stays out in front, but surely he'll have to give that one back. That was a big misjudgment under braking for the Audi, who was, unfortunately, he's been involved in incidents that weren't his fault, but I think arguably that one, maybe that time around, was a misjudgment on his part. Nicholas Hurt already on the gearbox, Lipke does seem to be backing off, so good sportsmanship there from the Audi. Wasn't impressed with some of the driving earlier on, but immediately owning up to his own mistakes there, which is fantastic to see. Mikoski then slotting back into P6 amongst all of that as we close in on the final 10 minutes of this race. To believe Tim will be back with us shortly, having to attend to some parenting duties. But hopefully all will be well in the closing stages of this race. Lipke then still staying honest with the back of that McLaren. Hopefully not too much damage for either of those cars. Just meanwhile also checking in at the front. Watson, despite responding well to the pace of Nuttall at the very beginning of this kind of second stint, has dropped back now to 4.3 second gap, so unable to keep up with the Honda, who has led since the very start. We've also got a little bit of battle going on between Neuwirth and Joshua Allen in the BMW. So these BMWs maybe haven't had the best raw pace, but between the racecraft of the drivers behind the wheel and the race pace, maybe good tyre management in those cars, have managed to get themselves into more competitive positions despite potentially the lacking that they're generally having in these cars. But Lipke now looking very, very racy behind that McLaren one more time. That McLaren has been rapid in a straight line, and even with the toe, not a familiar sight over the last few months, or a couple of months ago with this Audi. There was an absolute rocket ship down the back straights. He would have come all the way back from about 0.8 of a second and walked past the McLaren, but with these latest BOP changes not faring quite as well, and Lipke all over the back of that Visceral Esports McLaren. But Nicholas Hertz staying strong in that position for the time being, as being our closest battle on circuit. Also a little bit of a shout out to Justin Stubenrauch, who did serve that drive-through penalty and unfortunately did drop down the order after being in prime position for P3 after that battle with Watson, but has at least got the current honours of fastest lap of the race, just by about half a tenth over Jamie Nuttall, so that will at least be a bit of a commiseration prize for the 445 car to walk away with. But down in 23rd position, not where he would have been hoping nor expecting realistically to be amongst all of that, with all the action that we've had going on today. Did seem to be in a rather comfortable place, sitting in P3. And that position was taken over by Peachman after that drive-through penalty, who was battling with this man Lipke. He's been involved in a lot of action today, and some of it he has been the innocent party, others he has been unfortunately the instigator for bits of contact. But I think in all instances of the latter, that he has dropped back and let the other driver reclaim the position, which is fantastic to see, and is generally one of the main spirits in AOR, and maybe not so much in Tier 1 with the live stewarding. Quite often those drivers in quite a competitive field, they will stay ahead in terms of positions and just see what happens with the inquiries. But in the lower tiers, do quite often see that bit of extra sportsmanship, as Matt York and Dominic Koroshavin and Vince van Meerveld all going very close together. I think that was Koroshavin dropping behind these two, obviously wounded after that incident at the top of Radion. And Matt York and Van Meerveld have been battling for quite a while, but the Audi still remaining on top for the time being. The Aston Martin unable to find a way past, as we got two side-by-side bits of action. The Audi of Lipke trying to go around the outside once more, Nicholas Hertz, and the McLaren of Roder in the background trying to go around the outside of Mikoski. Roder does get through. What does Lipke manage to do? He's almost put in the gravel trap once more, but given a bit more room than he was when he battled with the BMW around the outside. But the McLaren of Nicholas Hertz does manage to hold the position. A great side-by-side action between those two, as well as Roder, the 55 car, who sneaks his way up into P6, and Mikoski, after making up so many positions in this race after that lower starting position outside the top 10, has now dropped towards P7, so not quite as high up as he would have been hoping to be, but still time in this race for things to happen, much like this battle between Matt York and Vince van Meerveld. These two very, very close once more. They've been absolutely nose to tail for good 40 minutes or so of this race, but no one managing to make a move, although someone is Jack Young sneaking through on the inside of that very wounded Aston Martin of Koroshavin, who has unfortunately now dropped down to 22nd position. But Matt York wide on the entry to pull on there and unable to stick with the Audi, so we'll have to see how that battle plays out. But the one that we've got closest on track, it's been a common one. Lipka all over the back of the McLaren once more, heading towards the bus stop chicane. Oh, very, very late on the brakes, sweeps towards the outside, won't find a way through there, but very much more confident on the brakes. And McLaren does have a weird characteristic on the brakes when you sort of get used to it for the first time. Very understeery on the braking, really gives you no turn in, and the Audi looking far more competitive at the moment, trying to go around the outside. This battle starting to build up with more cars, tries to sneak towards the inside for a cutback. The tiniest bits of contact with the gearbox of that McLaren, who shows the wall to the Audi, but just about managing to keep it clean. Following very, very close to one another through Eau Rouge and Radion. Lipka compromised on the exit of Radion there. A little bit of a cut for the McLaren, but did just about manage to keep it clean, I think. And this car has been very, very quick in a straight line. I don't think Lipka's going to have anything to respond with this time around. And indeed, he does have to stay behind for the time being. But it does look like, generally speaking, that car has the pace at the moment, but still hunting all over the gearbox of Nicholas Hurt.
I am back. Sorry about that little bit of an excursion I had to make. A very, very upset child. The joys of commentating from home.
Of course, no worries. Obviously, despite how much we love to prioritise our love of sim racing, duty calls in such responsibilities. But yeah, we have been enjoying some fantastic side-by-side action amongst these drivers at the front. Lipka and Nicholas Hurt really duking out with some nice harbour fair racing. Maybe another opportunity for the Audi. It was a wide line for the McLaren of Nicholas Hurt. He goes a little bit deep. Oh, not sure if there was a bit of contact on the entry there, but very wide for the McLaren, and he's going to lose all of those positions. All that hard work undone. Even Joshua Allen trying to get involved in this one as well, but can't find a way through. And after all of that fighting further up, Nicholas Hurt, the 303, does come undone. I couldn't quite see from the camera angle if there was contact on the entry of that braking zone, but certainly not the way that the 303 would have been wanting that to pan out.
I was on the helicam. I don't think there was any contact. I think it was just a case of throwing that McLaren in a little bit hard and the back end let go. From the angle I was looking at, it didn't appear to have any contact. I could be wrong. I'm sure if anything gets put through, someone will tell us. But no, it didn't appear to be any contact at that moment. But yeah, but fair play to him. Really rejoined the circuit in a very respectful manner. Ended up losing a few more positions, but he didn't just jump straight back on and sort of invalidate anyone else's race. So, and I imagine Rhoda and Makowski would be very, very happy about that, to not immediately get taken out by a rejoining car. But Rhoda, is he possibly on the attack for Lipka now? Is he going to be able to catch up? So Makowski, if he's clever, he will allow Rhoda to keep pushing forward and close up the gap and slow down Lipka as well. And he might be able to get 2 for 1, although all 3 of them pretty much absolutely cutting through. So again, we might see another drive-through pop up. Not as many as I was expecting to see this race at all.
Fairly well behaved, generally speaking, haven't they? Although it always gets very, very... Oh, and a huge moment for Thomas Jack on the exit of Radion there, and Terminen goes flying past, just about manages to avoid contact there, but a huge moment. He was following right on the gearbox of Soldatov, and that ended up... He just got it all wrong. The McLaren sometimes does bottom out through that series of corners, and he made a huge mistake on the exit, spinning around, a big contact with the wall. I think only losing a couple of positions in the process. Terminen, very evasive, very good evasive driving from him to manage to get through there cleanly, but disaster there for Thomas Jack, who I was wondering if he was going to be able to put pressure onto the Aston Martin just up ahead, but unfortunately it ended up being his demise.
Yeah, just ran a little bit too much exit curb, unsettled the car. Even though the McLaren has definitely been made a lot more drivable of late, I would say, it just chewed him up and spat him out at that moment, didn't it? There was just no way he was getting through that one alive, as it was should be said.
Yeah, that just unfortunately when it's so high speed through there, and the worst part is that as you're coming over that crest, the car goes so light, and when it does, it's any snaps of oversteer that you have, you can maybe deal with them a little bit through the compression. We saw that in the Honda when we went on board with Kuderman, had a bit of a moment but did manage to hold on to the car. But over the crest of Radion, just when the car goes light, it's so much trickier to hold on. Joshua Allen now trying to go around the outside of Nicholas Hurt. But the McLaren does defend that position and does have to stay behind for the time being. Also got the cue for the last lap of this race as Jamie Nuttall sets about trying to see if he can close out what has been a stellar drive. We've barely seen anything of him on the cameras, but he has absolutely controlled this one start to finish. And we said he would have been wanting to have a quiet one, and that's exactly what he has been gifted, really.
Yeah, his strategy worked really well. It all just sort of seemed to come together really for him. It's a great first effort. Oh, big cut there from which car was that? That was Allen. I think massive cut up through Radion. I mean, it's his last lap, so maybe he knew he had a couple of track limits he could get away with. I think it's 3 per race, and then usually get a drive through. So obviously he knew he had one left and did not want to waste the opportunity to get a bit of a straight line. But
we've got a really nice battle between Dominic Gultz and Jacques Amelli, and super cleanly around the outside. It may only be for 12th position, but that's nothing to be snuffed at in Tier 2. But Dominic Gultz in the 22 car, beautifully done around the outside of the number 6 Audi. So yeah, fantastic move there from him. We're still seeing shuffling in the closing stages of this race. I think our other closest battle on circuit is Matt York and Van Meerveld again, going side by side towards Lake Con. Oh, they finally come together. They've been running so cleanly and so closely throughout this entire race. And at the very end, unfortunately, the 65 Aston Martin does tag the back of the Audi. And that is absolute disaster. Such a shame after those two have had such a close battle all race long. But in terms of whose day it is, the 114 car, he got pole position by a big margin. His race lead went up to 6 seconds by the end, and Jamie Nuttall then in the Honda dominates here for round 1, the season opener of XI in the AOR series at Spa, and does take the win. Jordan Watson takes a very deserved podium in 2nd place, and Tim Peachman, who was closing in rapidly at the end, takes the final podium spot. Lipka looks like he will hold on to P4 as Roda try to hold back the BMW. There's Joshua Allen and Neuwirth going side by side on the exit on the bus stop. Going to be drag race towards the finish. Oh, contact right before the finish line. Oh dear. And Allen will take the flag, and Neuwirth will absolutely be livid about that. Wisely doesn't quite rejoin in front of Gultz, and I think that was Jacques Amelli, but action and disaster all the way to the line. We believe he will be absolutely livid and furious about that, I am sure. Unfortunate way for that to end there, but my goodness, what a race we had then for the opener of season 11.
I don't think there's any more sort of a battle for position actually going on circuit. Yeah, bit of an interesting last lap, that one, wasn't it, really? I mean, that incident right there at the very end, very, very odd. That rotation on the Aston Martin, there was definitely plenty of runoff space over to the right that could have been used, but for whatever reason there wasn't. Maybe they just didn't realise they were overlapping as much as they were. And in the same way, I very much doubt Matt York would have wanted to take that position away from Meerveld in that way. He'll probably be very disappointed in himself. I don't imagine he will, if anything gets raised about that, I don't imagine he'll try and sort of fight against it too much, because Matt York, are very much a gentleman racer, very fast racer, but usually very clean. So in previous seasons, he's always been a very clean racer, so I imagine he'll be a little bit disappointed about that. One car left to come across the line now. Romanenko, car number 48 in the Audi, just bringing home the field. But, as you said earlier on, the driver of the day, really, isn't it? It's Jamie Nuttall. I mean, his fans were all over the place at the beginning of the race. They've stuck with him the whole way through. Been some in Tier 1 and Tier 2, been some slightly interesting events, we'll put it that way, shall we? But overall, I would say for opening round at Spa, lots of newcomers. It's a very mixed up grid compared to normal. A lot of these guys haven't raced against each other before. I think everyone did pretty well. Realistically, I think it didn't go too badly for the opening round, especially when you look at Tier 1 yesterday. They had plenty of incidents themselves. So, yeah. I think it's gone pretty well, John.
Yeah, I mean, Tier 2 always has given us a treat when we've seen the action that we've had going on, and tonight was clearly no different. But Jamie Nuttall, absolutely the class of the field there, took a dominant pole position, cleared the field by half a second there. So, stellar effort from him. And also, I do want to make a special mention for Jordan Watson. 6 seconds adrift of our race winner, finishing in P2. He was absolutely he has so much bad luck last season. There were so many times where he came close to a podium and it just didn't quite come together for him. So I'm sure he will be very pleased to finally get up there. And who knows, with other rounds coming up, maybe the Ferrari, it is strong in certain places. So, maybe he'll be able to fight this one out with the likes of Jamie Nuttall at some of these other circuits. But yes, so much action packed all the way up and down the grid, and this is what we've just come to expect from Tier 2. Tier 1 may have the outright fastest guys in terms of one lap pace and race pace, but Tier 2 never seems to disappoint on the race action, and for the most part, although sometimes maybe a bit of questionable driving from time to time, we are treated to some fantastic side-by-side action and battling. But yeah, what a race we had there. Hopefully we might get a couple of interviews from drivers if they are willing to join and get involved in that. It'd be nice to hear from some of the drivers, particularly if maybe some of our podium finishers can get involved. But in the meantime, I'll have a little bit of a run through how they finished then in that race. So Jamie Nuttall led from start to finish and takes the first victory then in Season 11 of the AOR GT3 series. Brilliant stuff there from him. Jordan Watson P2, Tim Peachman P3 to close out the podium positions. And then Lipka, hard-fought stuff for him, and we'll have to see. He was involved in quite a bit of action. Whether or not there were any stewards inquiries for any of those drivers that were around kind of those top 5-ish positions, if that will end up shuffling anything post-race. But provisionally, he finishes P4, Roda P5, Mikoski goes from P12 to P6. He would have been hoping maybe for a little bit more from that with base how it went at some point. Nicholas Hurt drops to P7 in the end after that mistake in the closing stages. Salonen goes P8. Joshua Allen P9, but I imagine that there will be words certainly said after that contact with Neuwirth right before the start-finish line. That's why you can never say it's over until everyone has finished crossing line, because clearly anything, even the most extraordinary things can happen. And then rounding out the top 10, Colagrosso in the 44 McLaren. And we've got the likes of Dominic Goltz, Jacques Amelli, Neuwirth, Soldatov, Terminen, Jean Blanc, Thomas Jack, Mellis, P18, and then Matt York and Stubenrauch in the closing parts of the top 20. Stubenrauch will be absolutely livid with himself for the mistake that he made to get that drive-through penalty. And then our final finishers, Van Meerveld, Jack Young, Jay Fang, Dominic Koroshavin, Andres Kuderman, another one of our front runners that did get a drive-through, unfortunately. Olapitchik, Konstantin Romanenko, and then Kieran Peterson rounding out the grid. So that is how they all finished today, and I do believe that we have one driver that has stopped in for an interview. We've got Tim Peachman, who finished in P3. So let's bring him in and get a word from Tim. So Tim, can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Well, what an action-packed race that was. You had quite an intense battle with Lipka going on there for a while, but in the end, coming out on top of that and then benefiting from some other shenanigans further up the order to get a P3 spot. So how are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, I'm quite happy about my first AOR race. I tried to get in split 1, but I haven't had enough time to try and get better on the hot stints, and so I get into split 2 and tried my best to get on the podium. It's a shame that my teammate Justin Stubenrauch did get the DT for track limits. He deserved definitely the podium.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate, and clearly, Spa once again playing havoc in terms of being unforgiving with these track limits. But yeah, I mean, and just sort of we saw you and Lipka had a lot of battles between the pair of you, and just how difficult was it inside the cockpit of that McLaren trying to follow through the likes of Eau Rouge and Radion. We saw it caught some drivers out, and then side by side through some of these fast and flowing corners. What was that like from your perspective?
It was a quite tough battle between me and Lipka. I think it's very tough to get in the slipstream because of the understeer in Eau Rouge and Radion. But the top speed of the McLaren was way better than in the Audi, and so I can manage to get past Lipka. But unfortunately, I lost so much time that I can't attack Watson in P2 at the end.
I mean, especially for, like, as you said, it's your first time out with Apex Online Racing, sort of in the competitive race. I mean, fantastic effort, straight out of the gate on the podium. As you said, you were aiming for tier 1. I think that's pretty. I think a lot of guys are always looking for it. I mean, pace-wise, it definitely showed. That it tends to be that the top of tier 2 overlaps with sort of like the bottom and middle of tier 1. So, as we've seen before, drivers that have consistently finished within the top 5 in tier 2 end up being sort of bumped up to tier 1 to see if they can, sort of muscle their way forward as well. So if your season continues the way it has today, I mean, you're really looking, as we said, in sort of good standing to sort of make the move up to tier 1. But I say, on the podium, first race, absolutely fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, actually, is it all 3 newbies that are here? Obviously, Nuttall is a new guy. Watson
Watson is a return, so not
yes.
quite a AOR rookie podium, but yeah, great to see new names on there. And speaking obviously, like you're saying, Tim, that's of the kind of how that puts yourself into the latter stage of his championship. Heading to Watkins Glen next week. Any thoughts on how you're feeling for that? Obviously a very different circuit to Spa, and not sure if maybe it's quite as McLaren friendly, but what's your thoughts and feelings on that?
Yeah, I think the Honda will be again very, very strong, and the McLaren isn't the best car like on Spa, but I try my best. I have more time to prepare for Watkins than I had for Spa. So maybe I can attack the Hondas and VCS again.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff there from you today, and yeah, all the best of luck for Watkins Glen next week for that one. See if you can maybe work a little bit further up the order. But yeah, brilliant stuff, and congratulations on making a podium debut on your AOR debut. Brilliant stuff there from you, and thank you for joining us for an interview.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tim. And yeah, like you were just highlighting there, it's fantastic to see that immediately when some of these guys have come into AOR for the first time. And speaking of other rookie, has actually joined in for an interview. To see them up on the podium already, but race winning honours went to this man, Jamie Nuttall. Then, can you hear us all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. And, well, I mean, that was a dominant performance from you in qualifying, dominance in the race from start to finish. Was it as easy as it looks on the outside cameras, or did it get a little bit hard under collar at times inside the cockpit?
No, definitely not. Yeah. Very, very tough. Got a bit lucky at the start of the race to stay ahead. I think the other Honda who started second was running a bit higher wing. I think we would have been in trouble otherwise, but just mainly about trying to keep Watson behind in the Ferrari towards the end. That was tough. He looked quick after the pit stop.
Yeah, there was a couple of times, I think it was in that latter stage of the race, where we did see your gap. I think it got down to about 1.5 seconds.
Yeah.
It was after your pit stop, and we did sort of wonder a little bit: is the strategy right? Obviously, being new to Apex Online Racing, we didn't have sort of as much sort of experience with yourself, your driving style. We'd seen your lap times that you've been putting in qualifying, and obviously they were pretty outstanding. I think it was 0.4 of a second quicker than everybody else in qualifying. So yes, it was 0.475 quicker than the next man. So we knew your pace was very good, but you were wondering whether it would sort of start to change towards the end. And that moment where we saw the gap get a bit smaller, we all, me and John sort of thought, "Ooh, is this possibly going to be the change?" But you just kicked it up another gear. I don't know what you did to the Honda. It just came alive again in that second, sort of towards the end, especially this last sort of like 15-20 minutes, and you just absolutely tore away from Watson. So whatever you did at that moment, I think I need some of the secret sauce. That was amazing. It was a really good effort, mate. Really good effort.
Cheers. Yeah, Honda's very, very quick on 1 lap pace. It does tend to struggle on tyres a little bit, which was, I think, where the pace was going towards the end of the stint. It just takes a couple of laps to turn the tyres on, really. But yeah, Watson's pace was incredible. I think he probably maybe pushed a little bit too hard those first couple of laps. His pace was very, very good. If he kept that up, I definitely would have been in trouble, but maybe pushed just a little bit too hard before the tyres were fully up to temp, and that probably helped me out a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you controlled it from the front, and did everything that you needed to do in that position. Just maintain the gap to be kind of healthy, but and then as Tim said, just extending it later on when kind of your raw pace really just shine over the Ferrari of Watson behind. And we were just talking to Peachman in the McLaren, and he's maybe not too fond going into next week, heading into Watkins Glen. He seemed to think that the Honda's going to be strong there again. Are you feeling in a good position heading into next week's race?
We'll see. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I've had races recently at Watkins and it's not gone particularly well, but the Honda is definitely strong there. So we should be within a shout, but yeah, I think it'll be a lot closer than this week.
Well, I mean, you seem fairly confident. I say, obviously, and we haven't heard from Watson, so we don't know what he's thinking, but the Ferrari and the McLaren are 2 cars that can be a little bit skittish on the curbs, and obviously the Honda seems pretty solid over them at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the one behind the wheel, and obviously Watkins has got a lot of curbs, especially through that sort of that main chicane that you can sort of cut through. So fingers crossed it all works out for you. But to a certain extent, would be nice to maybe see you being challenged.
Absolutely,
slightly more, I say. But no, it's been an amazing effort. Like we said, this is your first time out with Apex Online Racing, and straight away first place on the podium, a really dominant performance. I imagine there'll be a lot of guys in tier 2 and probably some guys in tier 1 that are thinking, oh god, they need, so I think as we said to Peachman, I say continuing on this kind of pace, finishing inside the top 5 really does give you a really good step to push towards sort of, getting into tier 1, which obviously is the goal of everybody here at Apex Online Racing. They all want to get to the top. So really good effort, a great start, mate. Absolutely brilliant performance.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll see you next week then, Jamie, and thanks for coming in for an interview as well. Always much appreciated. And best of luck at Watkins Glen.
Brilliant. Cheers, thanks guys.
Cheers, Jamie.
I want to do a quick honourable mention, and he's going to be my driver of the day, I think, my personal one. Road started in 15th and finished all the way up in 5th, so that's 10 places he gained there. And I kind of feel like I don't feel like he was really he just suddenly got there. How did he suddenly get to 5th? He just appeared in 5th place.
Yeah, he just kept his nose clean, didn't he? He just benefited from some of the drive-throughs, some of the battling, some of the more questionable battling at times from those ahead. And and sometimes that's all you need in a race, even if you haven't got the outright raw pace, just keep it pointing in the right direction, keep it on the black stuff, let the other drivers make their own mistakes and fall off the track ahead of you, and then gain 10 positions and make your way into the top 5. So I think a good pick from your side on that front. Yeah, very well deserved.
Here we go. He's an endurance racer. That's why he was in Season 2, Tier 1. His team came 3rd overall in the Endurance Season 2. So that might explain a bit like Makowski. I do apologise. I keep butchering that name. My mind, I'm very dyslexic, and I read all the letters all at once, and it just completely confuses me. So I do apologise massively for that one. But those 2 drivers kept themselves really clean and just kept pushing forward. So, both of them great finishes. But yeah, Rhoda gets my my personal driver of the day. Tim's top pick, we'll call that one.
Yeah, we'll have to see how many. Who else ends up getting honours during the season for Tim's top pick? With that, I'll have to make that a bit of a staple throughout the season, I think. But yeah, brilliant stuff from the likes of Jamie Nuttall and Rhoda to get those results, and huge congratulations again to Nuttall, Watson and Peachman to be our podium finishers for the opening round. But that does look like, in terms of any interviews and things, that will be it for this evening. So we shall look to wrap up there, and like we say, next week heading to Watkins Glen then for the second round of the championship, and it's going to be another 60 minutes of action there. We know that the Honda seems to maybe be a bit quick. There's a couple of Porsches in this field as well that I know tend to go quite strong around there, so I have to see what they can do when they get to the next round. And will the likes of Watson, Peachman and some of those other drivers be able to challenge at the front? We'll have to wait and see. But brilliant action as always, and if you do want to get involved in some of this racing yourself, then do head over to apexonline.racing and sign yourself up as a... Oh, we've got, in actual fact, a bit of a late addition in the ready for interview box. We've got Thomas D. I don't know who that might be. They're hovering around. We'll bring them in. We might have to do a little bit of investigation to track this one down. Thomas, can you hear us okay in the comms box?
Hello.
Hello. I'm afraid I'm not 100% certain of who you are from the race.
Well, I'm afraid I was not in the race you were commentating.
I see. So have I brought you in for... for the wrong reason? Oh, I do apologise then. Thomas, I shall pop you back in the ready for interview. but thanks for making an appearance. Were you in one of the other tiers then for tonight's race?
Well, I actually won tier 10.
Oh, I see. I do apologise. I thought you were from another championship. Oh, well, we will speak to you then. It's nice to hear a little bit of the action from some of the other guys. Well, congratulations then on getting the win in tier 10. Obviously, we haven't quite seen how that played out, but was it a tricky race for you?
Well, it was a 4-way fight for the win, but it was a tricky one. Some nice overtakes, and I can say even tier 10 is quite clean.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You know, and we've been saying throughout this evening that kind of, you know, AOR is such a great environment for racing, and that really doesn't matter whether you're at the pointy end of the field, if you're at the tail end of the field, or if you're in tier 1 or if you're in tier 10, that there are always battles to be getting involved in. So that's fantastic to hear on that side of things. And obviously Watkins Glen coming up for yourself next week. I'm not sure what car you've taken for AOR this season, but how are you feeling going into that round?
Well, that's my favorite of the new tracks, so I'm really looking forward to that. I think we can get a good result there as well.
Excellent. It's, and just out of interest, what car are you going to be in for that one? Because we've been hearing, we've been trying to sort of feel out maybe which ones are going to be competitive.
I'm in the 22 Beamer.
Okay, that will be an interesting one there, yes. We saw today, generally maybe not the strongest in qualifying pace, but in race trim does seem to be a bit better, so I have to see how that works out for our drivers in Tier 2, and also for yourself going into next week. So yeah, congratulations again then for the win in the opening round of the season, and yeah, if you end up popping into a comms box, going to be nice to talk to you, but best of luck going into Watkins Glen next week.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me in.
You're very welcome. Ta-ra, Thomas.
Cheers.
A surprise interview there at the end, but nice to hear from someone in the other tiers, and also actually just goes on to evidence the point that I was going to make about getting involved in some of the sim racing yourself and heading over to the website apexonline.racing, because quite clearly, no matter whether or not you are battling at the front in tier 2 or in tier 10, that you are being welcome to some fantastic action and hearing another very happy man in the comms box. But I do think then that is it for this evening. So we will be back again next week, same time, same place. Obviously, Rage and Jay will be doing Tier 1 on Monday, so do tune in at 7:30 British time on Monday to catch the latest Tier 1 action, and then back with myself and Tim next Tuesday, a week from now, for Watkins Glen, and see what Tier 2 has to present there. And Tim, your final thoughts after what has been a pretty stellar opening round of the season today?
I would say a few more incidents than I would have liked to see from our Tier 2 boys. We usually pride ourselves on being cleaner than Tier 1, but, you know, I think we can get there. I say there was a lot on the line today. We had a lot of Tier 1 drivers joining us, obviously wanting to prove that they are still quick enough to be at the top of the grid or in Tier 1 again. We also had a lot of complete newbies, you know, wanting to prove themselves as well, of which they have today. It has to be said, the new guys have really come in and sort of kicked the front door down and said, we are here and we are going to be taking over the top 10. And then again, there's also been, you know, there's the old guard trying to, you know, defend their Tier 2 positions. So I think it's as the season goes on, I think the racing will only get better. And I mean, I'm putting it on Spa straight. First race at Spa is just absolutely, you know, straight in at the deep end, isn't it? That is the very highest dive, straight into the very deepest, you know, wearing a weighted shirt. It's a real challenge for everyone. So I think we've got lots and lots to look forward to. And I think it's just going to get better and better. It's going to be an absolutely amazing season. And I will continue to call this season XL, as I refuse to call it anything else. Just because it makes me think of Big Burgers.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more on both counts. And Tier 2, as ever, providing us fantastic action in the opening round with several rounds more to go. Obviously, only at the very beginning of this championship, and we will undoubtedly have more fantastic racing throughout the rest of this season. But that will be it then for today. So thank you everybody so much for joining the stream and all of the action and involvement in the chat. It's been great to see all the support for the stream and the drivers. Do also consider liking the stream and subscribing to the channel if you want to catch the future content of AOR, and obviously keeping in touch with us going into the next round of Watkins Glen next week. So hope to see as many of you there as possible. But for tonight then, it is goodbye.
Good night.